The No Limits method was made by teams of professionals. On Ability Plus Therapy's side, our occupational therapist, our physical therapist, and our speech therapist contributed to creating this educational method that moves forward. On the No Limits Academy side, which is a school for kids with neurodiverse backgrounds, they also contributed as our therapeutic educators to the method so that we can take you through a way to connect and to be able to educate your child successfully with both teams of professionals contributing to how the method moves forward. Roberta is a physical therapist. She knows a lot about, how the body moves. And in that, we saw that gap in the educational system, but not only in physical therapy, we saw it in occupational therapy, and then the collaboration between a teacher and a therapist kind of misses when you try to get a child to their potential. So for me, I saw it in the school system with my children, and as this came about over the last 20 years for Ability Plus and the last 17 for No Limits Academy, we've created this symbiotic relationship between these two groups of people that they don't normally talk to each other, maybe here or there in the school system.
It just doesn't have the structure to really have the collaboration for the teachers and the therapists. Me as a physical therapist in the school system, that's one of the barriers that I saw. I had to cover X amount of schools. Teachers have they have to meet the standards. Sometimes you would have a teacher who has one child who is neurodivergent and 14 other kids who are typical. And so how do they really understand how to implement and well, first of all, to even know anything about a child's diagnosis and how it impacts their education, right? And then also, what can that instructor do to implement therapeutic strategies that will help that child thrive?
Well, and sometimes you just don't know what questions to ask, right?
Exactly.
So that came up a lot when I was in the school system, that the teachers said the therapists would come in and get the child and then take the child and then bring them back, and they didn't really know how to do the follow through, right? So, but that isn't their fault, because basically they didn't even know what questions to ask, right?
Right.
And then a lot of times I got where, they didn't know the diagnosis completely, like you said. So to that degree, we have created 36 micro-credentials that you can learn and get certified in the No Limits method to kind of give you that pathway of how to get to that neurodivergent child. How do you educate that neurodivergent child to its best potential, right?
Yeah, and so the videos are done by, as she explained, by the professionals. And so as therapists, we're explaining all the bases that you need so that you understand the therapeutic aspect of the education and how you can implement that into your child's education.
Right.
And then you have also the educators who are also taking those therapeutic strategies and implementing it into the classroom. What does that look like in your classroom? How do you put it all together?
Yeah, because that's the point, right? Because these two professionals need to be talking to each other so that your child gets the benefit of the whole child education, right? Because we're not just computers. We have to get up out of our seats every day and walk around a classroom, which that's the lowest bar, and especially for a neurodivergent child. How do you meet those sensory needs? How do you meet those times where they need their cup filled a little more or they need it less? And those things you don't always know coming out as a teacher, but you know how to educate them. But if you can't get them to attain to the education, then you have nothing, right? And then you literally have chaos, right?
And then we're giving you, the educator, the tools, the knowledge, the basic knowledge, obviously you're still going, you're going to collaborate with the therapist that you're working with. But now you have information that you know what questions to ask.
Right.
Right? So that it improves that collaboration.
Right. And as a parent, you will have that information from the micro credentials to be like, I didn't really think about that. That's how my child can learn, right? If I knew that, because otherwise they would have to come here to Ability Plus Therapy, and we see parents all the time that, the structure of how to and what you should are like very important. Like our first one is communication. How do you communicate? It's as simple as that. And then what's best for your child, and advocating for that child. So as a parent, these 36 micro-credentials will be a major way for you to advocate for your child, right? To understand what your child needs and connect with them in a first person. Because a lot of times we see parents come in here and they're like, even me, even with my children, was it medical? Did I want him to walk, or did I really want him to be educated? Right? So which one was that? Which one came first, right? And I realized that both had to be at the same time. But I realized that when I was doing the medical and I was doing the intensive therapy and the traditional therapy, I was growing cognition too.
Right.
Like I was growing his brain, right?
Yeah, and that's why we incorporate medically based therapy into our method, because one of the barriers I saw in the school system is, you're doing educational relevant therapy. So if you have a child, for example, that is independent with their wheelchair and they're accessing their environment perfectly with the wheelchair, there is really no need to work on walking because they have full independence with the wheelchair. Or if you have a child who has a walker and, they can access their environment with the walker, but you look at their ambulation and their gait pattern, and it's not where it needs to be. There's so much more that could be done to improve alignment and all of those things that will prevent any future, surgeries or, malalignments and things that are happening.
But also when you walk and you have a gait pattern, it's creating one or the right and the left side of the brain are coordinating, which is growing all of that. So
but you want to really, you want to walk in the best pattern that you can. And
of course.
The medical component is where they work on quality of gait,
right?
Not the educational. So that's one of the things that I think in the school setting, you need to look at the whole child.
Yeah.
Not just
absolutely.
Can they access it, but how are they accessing it and what does it look like?
And I always thought that was something that could cross barriers, for me, as when I looked at the laws of educationally relevant therapy, but also they're not thinking about how it, we can't just sit in a chair all day long, like I said, right? We have to get up. That brings our brain to another level so that we understand where our body is in time and space, which then grows the cognition and then grows our education. I mean, you have to have your brain like fully like functioning. You can't just sit in a chair all day
Movement
long.
is what
it's very important.
Stimulates it.
Right. And so if you're doing the lowest bar ever, that's just that one component, right? But we do more than that, right?
And the other thing too, not only do we provide you with the knowledge of how to what the no limits method is and how to implement all those things, we give you lesson plans that you can use with your students. You don't have to spend as much time with lesson planning because we're providing you those resources. So there are a lot of resources that we provide to you through the no limits method.
Yes. And we're here because we want to unlock a child's world, right? And we've seen it over the 17 years at No Limits Academy. I believe that these kids do better because we are looking at this in a deeper way, and we do care about children.